If Missionary Ridge was Bragg's shield, Lookout Mountain was his fortress wall. Rising nearly 2,000 feet above the Tennessee River, its sheer cliffs dominated the southwestern approaches to Chattanooga. From its summit, Confederate artillery could look down on Union positions and threaten the vital Cracker Line supply route. The mountain was not just a strategic stronghold, it was a symbol. 2 Union soldiers gazing up from the city below, Lookout seemed invincible. Capturing it would not only secure supplies, but also deal a blow to Confederate morale. But the mountain had its flaws. Its summit was often shrouded in fog, its slopes tangled with rocks and forests. Confederate troops stationed there had difficulty coordinating with Bragg's main army on Missionary Ridge, and on November 24, 1863, those weaknesses would be exploited. Grant assigned the task of storming Lookout Mountain to Major General Joseph Hooker, the flamboyant commander known as Fighting Joe. Hooker had brought with him divisions from the Army of the Potomac, men hardened in battles like Antietam and Fredericksburg. Hooker's orders were to threaten the Confederate left and, if possible, drive the enemy from the mountain. The operation would also serve a larger purpose: to distract Bragg from Sherman's upcoming assault on Missionary Ridge. Hooker's force numbered about 12,000 Union soldiers. Drawn from 3 divisions, the Confederates opposing him, under Major General Carter Stevenson, numbered only 8,000, scattered along the slopes. The balance of power, for once, favored the Union. At dawn on November 24, Hooker's men crossed Lookout Creek at several points. Union engineers hastily threw bridges across the cold, rushing water while Confederate skirmishers fired from the opposite bank. Once across, Hooker deployed his men in long lines and began to ascend the wooded slopes. Thick fog clung to the mountain, rolling in from the river valley. Visibility dropped to mere yards. Soldiers described the eerie advance as like marching through the clouds, with only the sounds of musket fire and shouted commands to guide them. Union troops under General John W. Geary took the lead. They pushed through ravines and climbed rocky ledges, meeting pockets of Confederate resistance. Skirmishes flared among the trees as defenders tried to slow the ascent. The Confederates fought stubbornly, but the fog and terrain worked against them. They could not see the full size of Hooker's advance. Too many defenders, it seemed as if entire Union armies were materializing out of the mist. By late morning, Geary's men had gained a firm foothold on the slopes. They wheeled to the right, driving Confederate defenders toward the summit plateau. The battle above the clouds had begun in earnest. As the fighting raged, witnesses from Chattanooga looked up to see flashes of musket fire piercing the fog. From the valley below, it appeared as though the battle was being fought in the heavens. Union soldiers later recalled the surreal beauty of the scene. Clouds swirling, rifles cracking, banners waving in and out of sight. One Confederate wrote, "We fought them as best we could, but the fog was so thick that often we fired at shadows." By early afternoon, Hooker's men had captured the lower slopes and pressed upward toward the mountain's crags. Union regiments scrambled over rocks and through dense woods, planting flags on ridges as they advanced. Meanwhile, Union artillery set up across the river opened fire on Confederate positions. Shells screamed through the mist, exploding among the rocks and further shaking the defenders' morale. General Stevenson's Confederates, realizing they were outnumbered and outflanked, began to fall back toward the northern end of the mountain, nearer to Chattanooga. The retreat was chaotic, with units stumbling through fog and over rough ground. By late afternoon, the Confederates recognized the hopelessness of their position. Stevenson ordered a retreat toward Missionary Ridge. Under cover of darkness, his troops abandoned the mountain, slipping away before Hooker could organize a full assault on the summit. At dawn on November 25, Union soldiers found Lookout Mountain deserted. The stars and stripes were raised above the cliffs, and a cheer went up from the men below. The impregnable mountain had fallen. The Battle of Lookout Mountain was not the bloodiest clash of the campaign, but it was among the most dramatic. Union casualties numbered about 408 killed or wounded, while Confederate losses were around 1,251, most of them captured. Beyond the numbers, the victory electrified Union morale. Soldiers who had once feared Bragg's positions now believed they could drive him from Missionary Ridge as well. Newspapers in the North seized on the poetic imagery of the battle above the clouds, turning the fight into legend. For the Confederacy, the loss of Lookout Mountain was a serious blow. Bragg's left flank was turned, his men demoralized, and his grip on Chattanooga weakened. Yet Bragg still believed Missionary Ridge could hold. His army braced for the next clash. With Lookout Mountain secured, Hooker's men turned eastward toward Rossville Gap, preparing to join the main assault on Missionary Ridge. Sherman's divisions, meanwhile, had crossed the Tennessee River and were forming for their attack on the northern flank. Everything now pointed to the decisive battle, a clash that would determine not just Chattanooga's fate, but the future of the entire western theater of the Civil War. On the morning of November 25, 1863, the Union Army would strike in full force. The battle for Missionary Ridge and the collapse of Bragg's army was about to begin.